Hello. So today I'm going to explain to you how the universe works. Okay? So the universe fundamentally is three parts: the photon, the antiphoton, and the Higgs that surrounds them both. Okay? And what do they all make up? Well, this is the infinite torus, okay? Which is what? Dark energy and dark matter, which are interchangeable, okay? So there's something called the gradiuses of space, okay? So the gradiuses of space are basically photons getting, which you can basically think of as spheres, getting infinitely smaller and infinitely larger, okay? And within all these photons, they can be considered the infinite torus, okay? Because you have, if you want to think about it like this, one photon actually is a string of infinite photons, infinitely shooting inward towards the center and outward towards the horizon, okay? And then beyond that, they shoot both inward and outward, and going outside of them, they do the same thing, okay? But the thing about it is existence is so beyond infinite. It's so beyond infinite because once you get the level of the photon, guess what? That one photon, once you delve into it, it's just not one photon. It's not just one photon, one antiphoton. It's an accumulation of infinite photons and antiphotons held together by the Higgs. Okay? That's how beyond infinite existence is. Okay? Everything within the universe is a universe. And that's how you explain beyond infinity, okay? And I know that stuff is deep, but it's the way that it is, okay? So basically, the building blocks of space are the photon, the Higgs, and the antiphoton, okay? And then you have the gradiuses of space, which are like the steps of space, getting infinitely smaller and infinitely larger, okay? Everything within existence is beyond infinite. You're beyond infinite. I'm beyond infinite. This chair is beyond infinite. This is beyond infinite. It's all beyond infinite, okay? But where it starts to get a little bit complicated is mass is not infinite, okay? Mass is finite. But for the most part, existence, what we know as the universe, is beyond infinite because it has no beginning, it has no end, and it has an end, and it has a beginning. Okay? Because we're born, we die, but the universe as a whole, everything encompassed, is infinite. So what is that whenever you have both infinity and finite? Beyond infinity. Okay? So, let's get into the electromagnetic spectrum. I'm going to dry that out, so I'll be back in 1 second. Okay, so this is a rough drawing of the electromagnetic spectrum. Okay, so within the electromagnetic spectrum that we know right now, you have radio, microwave, infrared, light wave, ultraviolet, X-ray, and gamma waves. Okay? But the thing they don't account for is the beginning of the spectrum starts at magnetic waves, also known as love waves, because they oscillate at 10 to the 0, okay, which is once, okay, going all the way up to gravity waves, also known as entropy waves, that oscillate at 10 to infinity, okay, which is infinite, okay? But the thing about it is, they follow along the entire spectrum, okay? Because all the spectrum is basically photons oscillating at different frequencies of oscillations, okay? So it's basically photons getting infinitely larger and infinitely smaller, okay? So the stronger the magnetic waves are, the weaker the gravity, and vice versa, okay? So that's how basically to explain that. So let's think about it like within our solar system, okay? So you have the sun, which is being orbited by the planets, moons, and asteroids, okay? And that's the way that we think about it right now. But that's not really what's happening, okay? The sun is pushing out magnetic waves towards the planets, moons, and asteroids. The planets, moons, and asteroids are doing the same thing to the sun as well as each other, okay? And then you have what that holds them together. You have space, which is basically anti-photons, okay? So stars, planets, moons, asteroids, all basically are accumulations of matter and dark matter, okay? For the most part, though, stars can be considered photons, and space is antiphotons. And what is in between them? The planets, moons, and asteroids, okay? So everything is basically an accumulation of dark matter and dark energy, okay? So let me get into, let me kind of explain this a little bit. So the way that the fabric of space is woven together is you have basically the string, which I call it the string, which it's not really string. It's everything. It's photons. It's waves oscillating transversely and longitudinally. You know, it's moving in every which direction. But so you have the string basically oscillating at different frequencies. And what is between the string? Space, right? So if you have string going in infinite directions every which way, that's how they're woven together. Just like my shirt is woven together with string, they're woven together the same way. That's the fabric of space. That's the fabric of existence. It's how everything exists. Is there string shooting every which way, okay? So Now, let me get into elementary physics and how this all relates. All right, so this is basically the makeup of the hydrogen photon and the hydrogen atom. Okay? Which you're going to find out due to the gradiuses of space, they're both the same thing. Okay? That's all existence is basically an infinite stairway going infinite directions. Okay? Getting smaller, bigger, going every which direction. Okay? So basically, so accounting for electron volts, okay, and basically the charge relating to weakest to strongest, we start in the center and move our way out, okay? So I'm only doing 12 levels because 24 levels is too difficult to draw on this board, as well as you can basically just account for the antiphotons because these are the photons, okay? So the antiphotons you can account for as being basically the black lines, okay? So the photons start at electron neutrinos, muon neutrinos, electrons, up quarks, down quarks, tau neutrinos, strange quarks, muon quarks, charm quarks, tau quarks, bottom quarks, and top quarks. Okay? So these are basically all leptons and quarks. Okay? The way they think it is now, they think that the way they basically categorize it is, oh, well, the leptons do something separately than the quarks. No, they can be all intermixed, okay? They're all it basically just goes off of how much each electron volt is, going from weakest to strongest, okay? So, the opposite of top is anti-top, bottom, anti-bottom, tau, anti-tau, charm, anti-charm, muon, anti-muon, strange, anti-strange, tau neutrino, tau antineutrino, down, anti-down, up, anti-up, electron, positron, muon neutrino, muon antineutrino, electron neutrino, electron antineutrino. Okay? So basically every time they're going out, each one of these is a torus. Okay? So it's infinitely shooting in antiphotons and photons towards the center, as well as out towards the horizon, as well as out to the next gratis. Okay? So think about it like that, this and our gratis. Okay? So you have basically antiphotons, photons, all contained within the Higgs. Okay? So the way that you look at that is, think about the sun, the planets, the asteroids, okay? So there's gluons, which are holding those together, pulling them together, which is gravity, okay? Gravity waves, okay? You have Z0 bosons, which are magnetic waves, which is pushing everything out, okay? Like I showed you on the electromagnetic spectrum. The further you go down the electromagnetic spectrum, the stronger the gravity waves are, and the weaker the magnetic waves are, okay? They're inversely proportional, okay? So W plus W negative bosons are light and heat, and dark and cold. Okay, so think of the sun, and then think of space, which is the antiphotons. Okay, the sun is putting out light and heat, and the antiphotons are putting out dark and cold. Okay, so that's basically how the hydrogen photon and hydrogen atom are basically come together. Okay, so that's how you basically explain that. Now, there is a lot going on. This is just in one hydrogen photon and one hydrogen atom. Okay, basically 24 levels, okay, of gradiuses within one. Okay, that's which really, if you really account for the gradiuses, there's infinite levels. But this is just looking at it from a level that humans can comprehend. Okay, because all of it really, I mean, we can comprehend it. I mean, I basically was able to puzzle all this stuff together because we are basically beyond infinite. Okay, that is our mental capacity. We can go beyond infinity, but it's difficult to explain this stuff so that people can understand it on a simple level. Okay, so let me get into the gradiuses and the degrees of space. I'll be back in 1 second. Okay, so like I said before, existence is basically an infinite stairway, infinite gradiuses of space. Okay, going infinitely inward, infinitely outward. Okay, there's no beginning and no end. Okay, and that's what a lot of people have a hard time understanding. They have a hard time contemplating that, something that has no beginning and no end. But that's what existence is. Okay, so this is the gradiuses of space, basically looking at it in it's in multiple dimensions, because the dimensions are infinite as well. Everything within existence is infinite. Okay, it's beyond infinite. Okay, that's how I'm communicating with you right now. That's how my mind's working, your mind's working. My body is able to basically move through this energy field, which is existence, and be able to work so quickly. Like basically, whenever I'm doing this right now, that's not just me doing this. Okay, that's my antiphotons, my photons, my Higgs, all of them working beyond infinitely. Okay, so that I can basically absorb the string around me, I can emit string, and I can reflect string. Okay, I mean, it's a major ordeal for that to happen. Okay, so the gradiuses of space going infinitely inward, infinitely outward. Okay, so I'm gonna connect the dots on this real quick for you. And if you keep connecting them, you'll just keep doing it until this diagram gets completely black. And that's basically what infinity is. If the size of this was 0.00000 to almost infinity, and I kept drawing lines with it, they'd be so small, but I keep drawing lines infinitely, because this would basically never fill up, because this would be so small. Okay, I mean, it would at some point, but it would be basically infinite. Okay, because I just keep on filling in the lines. Okay, so whenever you fill the lines in, you'll see that it gets to be more and more dimensions. Okay, and it gets to be to the point where your mind can no longer comprehend it very well, because it's so many dimensions. okay? But you can comprehend it to an extent because, like I said before, we live in infinite dimensions. You know, like all this, the string theorists and stuff like that basically has said, oh yeah, well, we might live up to 12 dimensions and stuff like that. They're thinking on a smaller level. It's infinite. It's all beyond infinite, okay? But if I kept on filling these lines in, it basically would get to a point where it looked like static on your TV, okay? Because that's what the string is, okay? And I'll get into that a little bit later relating to the cosmic microwave background, but those are basically the gradiuses of space, you know? And it's a beautiful thing. So, now let me talk about basically the degrees, okay? This marker is not wanting to work. Now, like I said, all photons, antiphotons, and Higgs are basically the infinite torus, okay? So, what we currently have is our mathematics and everything like that is basically based off of 360 degrees, which is a sphere. And existence is actually infinite degrees-wise, okay? Because on the outside you have 360 degrees, but then once you go to the center of the sphere, it goes to 720 degrees. And I actually figured it out for basically basing it off of 24 levels of degrees, basing it off of the hydrogen photon / atom. So our mathematics is right now currently based off of 360 degrees. But if you account for the 24 different levels, it's 3,019,898,880 degrees, okay? And that's just within one hydrogen photon / atom, okay? That's how infinite everything is. And the thing about it is, if you account for everything within a hydrogen photon atom, which is infinite, because everything is infinite, everything in the universe is infinite, okay? Everything within the universe is a universe. That's how infinite it is, okay? So those are basically the degrees. Like every time you go down, it goes from 360 to 720 to 1440 to 2880 to 5760 to 11,520, and it goes all the way down the line, okay? And the degrees, like I said, they're infinite as well. Everything is basically infinite in space, okay? So now let's talk about the gradiuses, more or less kind of like how they kind of work. So you have the horizon, then you have the center, okay? So every time a gradius adds on, you have another torus, okay? So this is the infinite torus, okay? Which everything is made of, which is the photon, the antiphoton, and the Higgs, okay? But each torus up that gets added on, ditorus, tritorus, and so on, okay? It infinitely goes outward, infinitely goes inward, okay? So the way you can think of it is like this. Center, dark, outer, light, center, dark, outer, light, center, dark, outer, light, center, dark, outer, light. center dark. And then it swaps again, okay? But the black lines can be considered light, dark, light, dark, light, dark, light, dark, light, okay? So you have that, and then you have cold, hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold, okay? Hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold. You know what I mean? Like it keeps basically moving like that. You have not dense, dense, not dense, dense, not dense, dense, not dense, dense. Okay? That's how the gradiuses work. Okay? Like for instance, our planet between Earth and Mars is dense Earth, not dense space, dense Mars. Okay? The way that it is between my matter and this matter. Okay? Matter, energy, matter. Okay? But really, it's matter and energy, matter and energy, matter and energy. Okay? Because like I said, everything within the universe is a universe. That's how you explain beyond infinity. Okay? So, let me write something down real quick here. So you have two different physical terms. I don't call them theories anymore because they're not theories. Okay? All this stuff that I've puzzled together, all this stuff that Einstein, Planck puzzled together, it all pretty much works. Okay? Sometimes I wonder about where Planck got the idea for the Planck constant, because I don't know if he just like pulled like a really small number out of his butt or what, but you know, it works because you can basically use the size 6.626 times 10 to the negative 34th, which is an approximation, to basically account for the size of the photon. Okay, but I think it was an arbitrary number. I don't know where he got it from. Supposedly they say that engineers and stuff like that helped him come up with it, but I kind of think it was just an arbitrary number that he just chose. And he was able to basically base everything off of it, you know, like the Planck unit, you know, just all the different physical constants that he came up with could basically be based off of this, okay? But, so you have E equals mc squared, and you have E equals Planck's constant times frequency, okay? So, the difference between these is like I said before, you have the electromagnetic spectrum. And you have photons. Okay? So, E equals mc squared is basically dealing with the large side of the spectrum, okay? It's going this way, where everything is getting larger, okay? Because on this side, frequency is very high. Wavelength is very short, okay? Hence, the photons are very small, okay? But on this side, they're larger. Hence, E equals mc squared going this way. Planck's constant, everything is getting smaller, okay? So energy equals Planck's constant times frequency, okay? So, what was I thinking about? I lost my train of thought. So basically, everything is basically photons, antiphotons, and the Higgs, okay? Oscillating at different frequencies, getting larger and smaller, okay? Infinitely larger and infinitely smaller, okay? So, why am I losing my train of thought? So everything basically goes in waves, okay? It's basically photons, because if you account for the elementary physics and the quarks and the leptons, okay, they're basically spinning every which direction, okay? They're spinning this direction, they're spinning that direction, this direction, that direction, every which direction. They're spinning all directions, they're oscillating at all different frequencies, going down and up the electromagnetic spectrum, and they're going every which direction infinitely, okay? So that's basically what the fabric of space is, okay? It's basically just string going every which direction. Okay? And and if you look at it like that, you don't even have to look at it like that. You just look at me, look at everything. That's basically what the string is. That's what the antiphotons, photons, and Higgs are, okay? That's the fabric of existence, okay? So, now, I'm going to come back in 1 second. Okay, so this you can basically think of as the atom or the photon, okay, because they're basically the same thing, okay, or a solar system, okay? So the way that we look at it is, okay, well, within the middle of every galaxy is a black hole, okay? But really, black holes are just optical illusions, okay? Chasing a black hole, like if we got in a spacecraft, say we're here on Earth, here's the moon and everything, and we travel towards the black hole, we just this is theoretical, okay, I'm postulating, but we'd probably just keep chasing it. It'd be just like chasing a rainbow. You would never catch it. Because you would basically travel in the spacecraft for a while, and you would get to the point where the black hole was supposed to be, and all you would do is see more stars, and with telescopes see more galaxies, and you'd be like, where's this black hole supposed to be at that we were supposed to reach? Well, you're never gonna reach it, because it was an optical illusion, okay? But theoretically, if you started traveling towards the black hole, you would start entering into the center of the infinite torus. So you would never stop traveling. You would just keep on going, okay? And relative to someone back here on Earth, you would get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And time would just get faster and faster and faster relative to somebody back on Earth. So if you tried traveling to the black hole and then coming back, you'd probably come back here and there'd be like 1,000,000 years had passed since you left. You know what I mean? That's basically how time works, okay? Time is really complicated to explain because it's relative, okay? Just like for plants, okay, so whenever a plant basically blooms, okay, it's basically inhaling. And you've seen how long it takes for plants to bloom, to basically dilate and contract, dilate and contract. That takes a long time. Time is going, we're traveling so much more faster than plants are going. If plants could see, they probably wouldn't even see us. You know what I'm saying? Just because we're traveling so fast. So we're basically, we're kind of like the gods of plants, you know, because we feed them, we water them, we take care of them, and they don't ever even know that we're there. You know what I mean? So it's kind of a beautiful thing, but existence is a beautiful thing, you know, like for instance, this sounds kind of dirty, but whenever bees are pollinating plants, all they're doing is basically like giving them fellatio. That's how the plants basically have sex. You know what I mean? And like, for instance, us, whenever we're eating antibiotics, all we're doing is eating bacteria crap, okay? Because think about it for us. We defecate and we urinate. That gives the plants basically fertilization and food to be able to survive. Bacteria within us eat and crap. And that crap is basically fertilization for our cells, which help our cells to sustain. Okay? So whenever you're taking antibiotics, all you're basically just eating is just a big glob of bacteria crap. Okay? And time is basically dealing with the electromagnetic spectrum. Time is relative to more or less your heart rate, okay? So, like a hummingbird. A hummingbird's heart rate is like 1,000 times a minute, okay? So, relative to a hummingbird, whenever they look at us, they probably see us moving as kind of like turtles, okay? Like barely even moving at all, okay? Because relative to them, time for us is going so much, it's hard to explain time. But anyway, we're moving like turtles to them, okay? Because our heart rate's only like, 100 times a minute. Theirs is 1,000 times a minute, okay? And that's the way it works, Like, for instance, turtles, whenever they see us, they probably look at us like we're moving like hummingbirds, like we're moving like light speed, and them, they're just chomping along, no big deal. Time is relative, but time is one of the most difficult things to explain, okay? But like I was saying before, a black hole is basically just like a rainbow, most likely. It's just an optical illusion, okay? So, for instance, a while back, whenever they took a picture of that black hole, well, that's because it's so far away from us. You know what I mean? Like, if you compare it to, I think it's called UI Scuti, the largest star that we know of. I think UI Scuti relatively is a lot larger, but UI Scuti is a lot closer, okay? So whenever you're looking at a black hole in the center of a galaxy, it's just an optical illusion, because the whole Higgs, everything surrounding the galaxy, all the darkness, is basically the black hole, okay? It's just the farther away you are from it, the more dense it is, okay? Because photons work the same way as antiphotons, okay? So, whenever you're looking at the center of the galaxy, the frequency is really low and the wavelength is really long, okay? So it looks like there's a black hole, but really it's just space, okay? Which I was going to get into that later, but that's all the cosmic microwave background is. Whenever they were looking at the cosmic microwave background, they're not looking at microwaves. They're looking at radio photons, okay? Because whenever you look at static on your TV, that's all you're seeing is basically just radio photons, okay? It's just an assortment of radio photons and antiphotons, okay, contained within the Higgs. And if you watch it, you're not going to see any pattern to it. It's basically just going to be like just going all over the place, but it's a cool thing because you can actually see the string at a fundamental level, okay? Because looking at it from a regular level, from our level, a beyond infinite level, it looks like this. Looks like this wall, looks like me, looks like the air between us, okay? So let me get into white and black, Okay? So white and black can be, if you look at the color wheel, you'll see that white is in the middle of the color wheel, okay? Going out is all the other colors. And then you have black on the outside, okay? So basically, white and black are both the beginning and the end, and they can be interchangeable, okay? But we need another color wheel, okay? Our color wheel is antiquated. We need a color wheel that's 720 degrees, and our current color wheel is only 360 degrees and it's two-dimensional. We need a three-dimensional color wheel that's at least three-dimensional color wheel that's 720 degrees, okay? So how do you do that? Well, instead of just having the colors go out the way that they clearly do, the way that they currently do, you have to basically twist them, okay? And that's the way to make a basically 720 degree color wheel. You know, we have to continue on with Newton's work, you know. Newton made a lot of innovative discoveries, and the reason we're at for where we are for is because a lot of his discoveries that he made. But we have to continue on with his work, okay? Because if you apply this to existence, and his work to existence, his work actually applies. Like all the theories and everything like that they came up with for quantum mechanics and everything like that, you can throw a lot of that stuff out because it no longer applies, you know, once you account for photons, antiphotons, the Higgs, and the electromagnetic spectrum, okay? Because it all basically follows the same template, which is Newton's laws, okay? But we have to continue on with Newton's work. And one of the ways that we need to make strides in our progress is by developing a new color wheel, okay? Like for instance, the sun. The sun, I postulate, is made, the horizon of the sun is basically burning gold, okay? And the corona is evaporated mercury, okay? Now, people might say, well, Stephen, that doesn't really make sense because mercury vaporization happens at 59.11 kilojoules per mole, and gold vaporization happens at 342 kilojoules per mole. Well, the reason for that is because, like I said before, the way that existence is hot, cold, hot, cold. Okay, so a black hole could be considered cold, hot, cold. Okay? And it's just, it works the same way with stars. Okay? So a star is hot, then cold, then hot, then cold. Okay? And that's basically why the corona of the sun is hotter than the sun's horizon, okay, is because of the gradiuses of space, okay? So going back to the color wheel though, if you look at a negative picture of the sun, it's grayish indigo, okay? So if you look at grayish indigo on the color wheel, you'll see it's here. On the other side of the color wheel is gold, okay? So using it from a negative image standpoint, you can see that the sun is made of burning gold, which, like I've said before in other videos, poetry of God, which is religion, has basically told us these things. Like if you read the book of Revelations, it'll talk about the stars coming back to the earth and all kind of different colors of stars and all kinds of things like that. Well, that's what it's talking about, is the colors of the stars, okay? and how we're basically stars. But I've explained some of this stuff in previous videos that you can watch. I don't want to make a video that's hours long today, so I'm basically just explaining this stuff. But so you have white, which is eggs, sperm, milk. You know, those can be considered the beginning. And then you have black, which is like space. Okay, could be considered the end. But they're interchangeable, like I said before. Okay. So looking at it from kind of like the perspective of what I showed before, which, let me draw this real quick. I don't want to lose my place in the video. Give me 1 minute. Okay, so basically, like I said before, okay, so existence basically follows the same template going both directions, okay? It's like a record, okay? So you have white in the middle, black on the outside, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, okay? So, for instance, looking at it like plants follow white to black, okay? So you have, beginning is red algae, Europhytes, which are green, and then you have, you know, you go down the list, you know, you have liverworts, which is everything, you have horsetails, which are, you know, green and purple, and you have conifers, which is, you know, indigo and green, and then you have anthophytes, which is everything, okay, which is where we clearly are right now, okay. All the plants and algae, all that stuff covers the entire electromagnetic spectrum, okay. So that's basically following the white to black, okay? But you have human beings which are going the other way, okay? So you have human beings which are basically, okay, because I didn't get into this earlier, but, well, I kind of did, but stars and photons, protons, they're all the same thing, okay? If you account for the gradiuses of space, they're all the same thing. So you have protostars, which start in blue and red, Tauri stars, which are orange and red, you have white dwarfs, red dwarfs, brown dwarfs, subdwarfs that are red and white, red subgiants, which are white and red giants, which are red, bright giants that are white and black and white, super giants, which are blue, hyper giants, which are indigo. Okay, so I didn't write it down, but it's all basically starting from black and making its way into white. Okay, and this sounds funny, but the pigments of human skin are actually red, brown, white, yellow, and black dwarfs, okay? Those are the pigments of our skin, okay? It's basically just space in reverse, okay? So I know that's trippy, but it's the way that it works. It's like I was saying before, it's the gradiuses of space, okay? Because you are the light, okay? Space is the dark, you are the light. And what separates us is clear. Clear is basically water, air, plasma, seminal fluid, all those things. And what are those things? Well, they're matter and they're energy. And what are those? Photons, antiphotons, and Higgs, okay? So basically, whenever you're looking out into the air, you're just seeing an accumulation of white and black infinitely, okay? Which is clear, okay? So I talked about that stuff. Let me get my place and I'll be right back. Okay, so we're giving a thumbs up because I want to keep my place in this video because I'm going to show you guys some pictures of some different things, okay? So this is the golden ratio, okay? 1.618, okay? So where did I write that down at? Okay, but everything basically follows the template of the golden ratio, okay? It's an irrational number, so it's infinite. It starts at 1.618, but just goes infinitely. Just like pi is 3.14, goes infinitely. Square root of 2 is infinite. Euler's number is infinite, okay, 2.718. But it all basically follows the same template, which is Euler's number. I mean, not Euler's number, but the golden ratio. Okay, I'm sure Euler's number has something to do with it too, because that's the number that they use to basically calculate compound interest and stuff like that, dealing with going up to infinity. So the golden ratio is the template that everything in existence pretty much follows. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys some pictures of a few things, and I will be back in 1 second.
In these pictures, you'll see the golden ratio. So you see Leonardo da Vinci used it in his artwork for Vitruvian Man, the Mona Lisa, several paintings. This is kind of some artwork. As well as you can see galaxies follow it as well. The Japanese wave painting. The yin and the yang. Stairwells. Okay, same thing. All of existence follows the golden ratio. Salvador Dali used it for a lot of his paintings. It was also used for, it's also snail shells and different things like that as well.
Okay, so now I'm going to get into polynomials and graphing, okay? A lot of you probably have not dealt with polynomials since high school. So I got a graphing app on my phone, and it ended up, I was just getting it to play with it, and as everything that I've figured out now, just playing, you find out a lot about existence. So that's what we're meant to do. We're meant to play. We're not meant to work, be stressed out. We're meant to play. So polynomial equations, okay? So I'm going to show you guys some pictures of polynomial graphs, and I'll show you what they mean now, but then you'll be able to look at them on the video, okay? So whenever you start graphing polynomial equations like x squared plus y squared equals 1, or x square root of 2 plus y square root of 2 equals square root of 2, you can kind of start seeing the ways that the gradiuses of space work, okay? You can figure a lot out with square roots in the universe, okay? They give a lot of evidence to how things work exactly. So whenever you use them, you can see that the way everything gets to be shaped is it's all different shapes, okay? So you have kind of like a square circle, and you have a circle, and you have a square, and you have triangles, and it's just all the different shapes start to take place. So whenever you start plugging in different polynomial equations and graphing them, you'll find that this is 1, and then it starts to fall in infinitely towards the center, which is the middle of the gratis, okay, the center of the gratis, okay? And then after 1, it starts to fall out to the outside of the gratis, which is the horizon of the gratis, okay? And then it starts to pull back in into a square shape, okay? Until it basically falls off into infinity, like a waterfall, okay? So, going to the center, falling downward towards infinity, going to the outer, then back, and then falling back in towards infinity. But if you look at it on a bigger level, you'll start realizing that, let's take this number, so 0.00001 and 0.00002. You'll start realizing that whenever you start doing mathematics, the difference between 0.00001 and 0.00002 are infinite, okay? Because if you tell me, Stephen, well, how are those infinite? You know, it's just the difference between those is 0.00001. No, it's not, because you have to start adding on numbers. And you know, if you try to start doing that, you know, come back and talk to me in like 5 years from now, where you're still basically going down a line and you've written hundreds of thousands, if not millions of numbers, and you're still not even close to getting to infinity. Yeah, that's how infinity works, okay? Everything is beyond infinite, okay? So it might look like everything's falling off infinitely towards the center of the torus as well as the horizon of the torus, but it's not. It's infinite in every which direction. The whole torus, everything within it is infinite, okay? Because within one torus is infinite toruses. Within the universe is infinite universes, okay? That's how you explain beyond infinity, okay? So I'll show you some pictures and let you look at them, and I will be back. So playing with the polynomial equations, graphing, and doing different things with them, it's fun. It's a good time. So if you're a geek.
Okay, so here you can see that it's basically infinitely following into the center, then out, then back into a square shape, then back down infinitely. This is basically just graphing, kind of like a center of a flower. Once you zoom out, basically you can solve for nature mathematically in that instance. I think it's called a floor set, something like that, floor set.
Okay, so now let's get into the actual size of photons, antiphotons, and conglomerations of them, okay? So to account for that, this is basically, it's kind of like I said before with Max Planck and how he basically pulled out the Planck's constant out of nowhere. Okay, so this gives you a rough idea how to solve for how large the photon is, okay? Or if you're being a meticulous science, how large the string of photons and antiphotons are, oscillating everything from nothing to infinity, spinning, going every which direction, okay? Which is the infinite torus, okay? So you have Planck's constant times frequency times wavelength to the power of Euler's number would be the size of the antiphoton, okay? Very small, okay? Planck's constant times frequency times wavelength would be the size of the photon, okay? Once again, very small. Frequency times wavelength would be the size of the electron, still very small. The proton would be frequency wavelength to the power of Euler's number, getting larger, okay? The black hole, which like I said before, is an optical illusion, but just comparing them all on this scale, okay, you would have Planck's constant, the inverse of Planck's constant times frequency times wavelength, okay, would be the size of the black hole. And then the star, you could have Planck's constant times frequency times wavelength, the inverse of that, to the power of Euler's number, okay? And that's how you can basically compare the size of the antiphoton, photon, electron, proton, black hole, and star, okay? I was going to show this before. So accounting for what I said before, showing you with the polynomial graphs and everything like that, and how this is not really this is really infinite, going every which direction. You can kind of compare it to, which the golden ratio applies to pyramids as well, but the pyramids, okay? So I don't know how Imhotep saw it in his mind. I don't know if he dreamed it, or maybe it was put into his imagination, but the gratises of space kind of work like the pyramids. Well, they work exactly like the pyramids, okay? Because you have the tip of the pyramid, which is the center of the gratis, and then the earth, which is the horizon of the gratis, okay? All this stuff has basically been fed into us over the years, okay? And we've finally just gotten to the point now where we've puzzled it all together, okay? So now that we've puzzled it all together, we can really start to progress, okay? So, let me look at, so I talked about the force field, I talked about CMB and TV static, okay? So like I said before, all you're basically looking at, whenever we look at the CMB, all you're seeing is radio photons, which are the largest photons, okay? And then the smallest photons at that point are gravity photons, which hold it all together, which are basically the horizon of the photon at that point, okay? So, I mean, gravity waves, if you look at it, are really always the horizon of the photon. But yeah, I mean, that's the way it works. You know, you have zero, you have infinity on the other side of the spectrum. So 0, infinity, infinity, 0. And they're both going back and forth nonstop all the time, which are dark matter, dark energy, photons, antiphotons contained within the Higgs. Okay? Yes, I talked about, oh yeah, I was getting into the sun a while ago, talking about the vaporization levels and different things like that, and how it relates to hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold, okay? And I think I pretty much kind of explained that, but I could kind of draw this a little bit. So you have the sun, which is pretty much kind of like at the middle of the gratis, which is our solar system, okay? It's 9,000 miles large. The diameter is 9,000 miles. And then outside of it is the corona, which is 40 times larger than the horizon, which is 36 million miles, okay? And then outside of that, you have the planet's orbits, okay? Which I've said this in past videos before, but if you have planets orbiting in elliptical orbits going every which direction, okay, that makes a sphere. And if you account for the gratises of space, like say this is Earth, okay, if you account for the gratises of space, because they're basically orbiting, they're not orbiting the planets and moons and asteroids and the star to the black hole are not orbiting in a flat plane, okay? We have nothing to compare it to because it's only space out there. I mean, I'm sure in the future they'll be able to compare it to, different galaxies and stuff like that. How basically they're orbiting, they're not orbiting like this, they're orbiting like this. Okay, going every which direction, you know. But whenever you consider the grasses of space, which is basically our time, okay, you can only see certain parts of the galaxies, okay? So the galaxies look flat, okay? Because we can only see within our own gratis. But if we could see all the other gratises, which wouldn't be possible because time, nothing would be able to exist, you could see that the galaxy was a sphere, okay? Which, what does that look like to you? It looks like the torus, right? So all galaxies is, looking at it at a different level, basically one large photon, antiphoton, contained within the Higgs, okay? That's all they are, okay? So let me talk about the different levels of space. I'll be back in 1 second. Okay, so these are the different levels of space, okay? And this is where it starts to get trippy, because when you're dealing with beyond infinity, it's trippy, okay? So in the middle, you have the antiphoton. On the outside, photon, gluon, boson, quark, lepton, electron, neutron, proton, atom, molecules, DNA and cells, okay? So that's coming up to our level, okay? And then after that, you have space, which is pretty much antiphotons. It's both photons and antiphotons, for the most part, antiphotons, okay? And then you have it pretty much starts all over here again, except it's in space and instead of here, okay? So where it starts to get trippy is like I said before, galaxies are basically just antiphotons, photons, antiphotons, and photons, okay? That's all galaxies are. So the infinite stairway of the gratises of space, which is getting infinitely smaller and infinitely larger, starts over again. So all the galaxies make up the photons and the antiphotons, which make up what? That makes up the gluons, the bosons, the quarks, the leptons, the electrons, the neutrons, the protons, the atoms, the molecules, the DNA, the cells, the black holes, the planets, moons, asteroids, the stars, the solar systems, the galaxy, and the galaxies, okay? So we can most likely only see everything that we see out in space is probably everything that's within our own level of space, okay? So if you look at it like we're on the very beginning, which space is for the most part, antiphotons, we're basically only in the electron neutrino. Everything we can see is only within the electron neutrino, and it keeps moving out. And I postulate is where it ends, is at the cell. Which, what is the cell? the red blood cell, because you are both the center of your existence as well as the horizon of your existence, okay? And what is everything that basically is your life force? The red blood cell, okay? So goes from space all the way out to antiphotons, photons, atoms, molecules, DNA, and cells, which are red blood cells, okay? And that's the way the infinite loop works. I know it's really trippy, but it's most likely the way it works. I mean, a lot of this stuff is theoretical, but if you put it all together, it works out. So that's pretty much it for today. I don't think I really have anything else to go over. There's always lots of stuff to go over. If you want to watch any of my other videos that cover other things, feel free to. Yeah, I was going to talk about the golden ratio and how space basically follows the golden ratio. But it all follows the same template, okay? So if you have okay, so this is kind of like the golden ratio. Okay, looks just like a snail, okay? And like I said, you saw pictures of that earlier, or else I'll show you pictures of this. I'm going to cut this video together later. But say in the middle you have a black hole. Then on the outside you have a star with planets, moons, star, planets, moons, star, planets, moons. Okay? So everything is basically equally orbiting each other. Okay? So, you know, the black hole, like I said, is an optical illusion, and all of the antiphotons that are in the galaxy are orbiting all of the photons and antiphotons that make up the stars, the planets, the moons, and the asteroids. Okay, so if they're all basically orbiting one another, and you account for that, I kind of don't want to do that in this video, but anyway, but whenever you start connecting them and you apply the golden ratio, you'll find that everything fits within a perfect sphere, which fits within a square, okay? So everything within space is kind of like the gradiuses of space, basically just infinite cubes that are spreading out. Okay, that's another thing I was going to show you. I've showed this in videos before, but if you have a couple magnets and you put them together and you put smaller magnets on the outside of them and you try to push these together, you'll find that the little moons on the outside of them, or asteroids, whatever you want to call them, they repel one another, okay? That's how space works, okay? That's dark matter. Now dark energy, this is dark matter whenever they're attracting each other, okay? Dark energy is whenever you twist them and they shoot out, okay? It works the same way whenever you consummate with somebody and they're inseminated, okay? You can consider yourself a photon, and your partner, you can consider yourself a photon antiphoton, your partner a photon antiphoton, and whenever you come together, you meet, you basically mate, there's insemination that occurs, and then there would be another photon which shoots out down here away from these two, okay? So it would be like 3 different waves pushing out, okay? Because following the gradiuses of space, that's all that everything is. But yeah, so that's basically it. That's pretty much how the whole universe works. If you would like, I would appreciate it if you would go to my GoFundMe page. It's magnitistoys.com, magnitis.com. That's not my GoFundMe page. That's my website for my toy. I sell these little toys with a levitating magnet inside. But I can show you how dark energy and stuff like that works. Or you can go to my GoFundMe page, Magnitis Toys. Okay. There's other stuff I could get into, but you can refer to some of my other videos. I've went over a lot of this stuff, but that's pretty much it. All right. Well, thank you for your time. Oh, that's what I was going to say. So, whenever you're looking at the cosmic microwave background, and they see basically the radio photons, that's all you're seeing is really large radio photons, okay? Because right now, what we're seeing is an accumulation of all the photons, okay? And they're really small, you know what I mean? Like infinitely small, okay? So that's all the cosmic microwave background is just radio photons, just large photons and antiphotons, you know what I mean? That's all it is. So, yeah, but that's pretty much it. I appreciate your time and thank you.